So over the past week, I've uploaded 3 30-second Halo clips to my YouTube channel. Each one of these clips featured Halo 5's movement in really fluid and satisfying sequences where I'm throwing myself across the map at high speeds and doing 360s. The crazy thing about these clips is they all take advantage of techniques in this game that are widely unknown. And I mean, like, not many people have any idea this stuff exists. Not even pros are using this technique to their advantage, and they're very powerful techniques, so much so that if enough people master them, I think they have the power to change the meta in this game. So today, I'm going to break down these clips in detail. If you're like me and you're stuck waiting for Halo Infinite, looking for something new and exciting to do in the meantime, this will keep you busy. Or if you're still playing Halo 5, you want to level up your game, the techniques used in this video will fundamentally change the way you move on maps. And it's a long video, so make sure to check the segments in the play bar. You can skip around as you like or watch it all in one shot. If you like this content, then make sure to let me know. Hit subscribe, hit the like button. I'd appreciate that, but let's not waste any time. Let's get into this. All right, now step by step, let's break this clip down. I started in yard and then sprinted, jumped, turned, and did like a super slide on a right angle with just enough momentum to spring jump, stabilize, and catch top mid. I just missed the spring jump there. And this super slide technique, this is a perfect thing to start with. This is perfect for our new meta movement because not many people are using this technique or even aware of the existence of this technique. You might have heard of super sliding when Halo 5 first came out. It was this crazy launch that would send you across the map and you could do it on any downward ramp. But that technique was patched out of the game. However, they didn't change the mechanics of sliding on ramps. That still works the same. So years later, people discovered that you could still pull off the super slide launch. It's just more challenging now, and you have to hit it perfectly to get the best result with it. Now, this might not be the best situation to use it, but this technique is very versatile, and there's a whole variety of ways that I can use it on this ramp specifically to get different results. For now, I'm just going to let you know the inputs that go into this, and then later in the video, you're going to learn more and more about this technique and how it works, where you can use it, different ways you can apply it, etc. But I start by sprinting, jumping, and I keep sprint maintained forward in the air. And then for this one, which there are a variety of ways to do it, for this one I turn while holding sprint forward and then thrust, reactivate sprint, and slide the instant that I hit the floor. The difficulty with this is the reactivation of sprint in midair. So you're sprinting, jumping, thrusting, and then immediately after the thrust, you press sprint again so that you come at a thrust in sprint animation and that you hit the ramp in that sprint animation, because in order to slide, you need to be sprinting. So you got to sprint, jump, thrust, re-sprint by pressing sprint again, and then the instant you hit the floor, you want to hit crouch to slide. And if you get perfect timing, if you hit crouch the instant you hit the floor, not before you hit the floor, but the moment you make contact with the floor, then you will get the best possible slide. It also depends on how much momentum you have coming into the floor. The more speed you have going into the floor and the better the timing of that crouch, the better the launch. So for here, you sprint, jump, turn, thrust, re-sprint, and then crouch when I hit the floor to slide and then jump. It's complex, for sure. It's going to take time to practice, but if you get it down, you can start to use it in different ways. Like there's that way up at a yard, which is more for style, and then there's this one off of this kind of banister thing, whatever you want to call this, that's going to send you much farther, and it's much more aggressive. This one, I'm going to sprint, jump, and then I time my thrust, so I bank my head off of this pole section right here, and that'll send me down at a high speed, and then I have to re-sprint and crouch. So it's kind of tough to time it. But if you do it right, honestly, that wasn't frame perfect. If I do this properly, I will sail over the car. I won't jump off the car, and I'll get all the way over to garbage truck.
We're halfway to victory.
Something you'll start to see as we go through other clips is there's a variety of ways to connect this technique depending on the environment around you. Like I can also do it going up the stairs like this and then jumping and thrust, resprint, slide. And if I hit this correctly, that's a pretty solid boost, right? I didn't have to use the roof to send me down. I just picked a different angle to come at it from, and now I'm on garbage truck. So you can get pretty creative with it, basically, and find different ways to implement it, and we'll see that in future clips. So it starts with the angled super slide, right? Back to the clip here. Then I do the spring jump, stabilize, do that perfectly. I don't need to mash crouch to keep the stabilize up. Spring jumping, of course, I'm not going to talk about how this works. I've got videos on how this works. I've linked those in the description. Detailed videos. I have a specific technique on how I spring jump and how I hit it consistently. So if you want to know that, you want to get better at spring jumping, watch the videos in the description. Once I got up to top mid, I sprinted, slide jumped, and turned, and then did a spring jump backwards that perfectly lined up with the red sign so I could clamber it. This is style as well. I wouldn't recommend doing this normally in a game because, you know, typically, like, while I'm sailing through the air, I should be, you know, I could be shooting stuff, but it's hard to place your reticle correctly and hit your shots and try to line up like a backwards spring jump. There's just no point. In general, you should know how to spring jump to this sign, though. It's very useful to spring jump to get up here. After that, I jumped over to top mid and I shot at these windows. This is was more for fun, more to also show people that you can shoot and move at the same time while you do this complex stuff. But it's also kind of like Halo shadow boxing. Like, I think if you want to practice your movement, I think it is important that you get in the hang of, like, pre-aiming, like, places where you'd expect enemies to be and just firing maybe 5 shots or so into that location and then snap onto the next. And your consistency in snapping into the right locations and kind of holding that placement, I think, is really useful to get in the habit of. If you can master that, then when you are going for crazy movement, you're looking in at least you have good habits. You're looking in the right places, right? So from there, I then connected that into a slide that sent me all the way over to green ledge. Notice how this time I actually made it. Now, in the video, I missed the ledge because I didn't hit it frame perfect. But if you hit this slide properly, you land on the green ledge. It's so sick. Now, this technique is called a drop slide. Drop sliding, in my opinion, is one of the new meta techniques in Halo 5. People are aware of drop sliding. I think, you know, there's a good amount of people know that it exists in the game, but people aren't using it in creative ways. They're not using it to get around the map. They're not using it to like, just make more efficient plays as much as they could be. And I think people aren't thinking about it, or they're not really aware of it. So this is why I see it as part of a new meta, because if you start to implement this, like, look how cleanly I just crossed. You also have to think about, okay, it doesn't make sense for me to go from S4 to hotel when S4 is kind of a power position. You got to think of the right environment to do something like this. Like, maybe if you have players pushing you through poster side and you got the snipe and you're up on S4 and you know you're going to be under pressure, so you want to make a quick rotation to hotel to get back into cafe, like, bam, you save your thrust at the same time, right? So knowing the situation, using it at the right time is one of the hardest things. But this technique is so versatile. And it's so satisfying when you hit it that it's in my opinion, part of this new meta. How does it work? It's actually very similar to the super slide that we just watched. It's the second half of the super slide. There's just no thrust involved. So what I'm doing, exactly as it sounds, is I'm dropping on a ramp and I'm sliding. But there's two things you got to keep in mind with this is you have to be sprinting in midair, right? Because you can't slide unless you're sprinting. So the first step is to be sprinting and then to maintain sprint in midair. So you're holding forward on that left stick. And then the second thing to consider is that you have to hit crouch after you make contact with the ramp. If I'm falling and I hit crouch before I make contact with the ramp, then I'll crouch in midair and I'll get no momentum. Like, I won't be able to slide. I'll just land on the ramp with no momentum. So you have to wait until you hit the ramp and then hit slide. The better the timing, the better the launch. The more momentum you have while falling, so the longer time you spend falling through the air, or if you can use a thrust to propel yourself, the better the launch as well, right? And you can do this literally anywhere. So I sprinted, turned, and landed on the ramp, and then slid the moment I hit it. You got to make sure you line that sprint up properly and that you fall far enough forward so that you actually make contact with the ramp on your fall so that you can slide. The lower on the ramp that you land, the better the slide, because the longer you spend time in the air, and I guess the more kind of velocity you pick up, the longer you're in the air, right? So you just got to make that angled slide, that angled drop, and then slide, and then it took me over to here, and then from there I jumped up, went here, I dropped and slid again, so even just this ramp, right? You can use this ramp, and that sent me out to here, and then I spring jumped, thrusted, and then grab this light post right here, which is pretty cool. This you're not typically gonna connect in this way. You could, I think, maybe in twos, in 2v2 where you have more freedom to move around, maybe that could work, but you can start to apply this stuff yourself. Like even this drop slide, you might not want to do it too often, but if you do go for it, you could do it just to get in this corner and wait here, let's say in strongholds, if you expect somebody to come up on Prius. So it's a nice way to launch yourself into this corner to maybe get a first shot on somebody to prep yourself, let's say. Or you can technically like drop, land, jump, and like grab. You have to angle it really well, but you can jump, stabilize, grab that, and then jump up to the bridge. You can also do it from this window. So if you find yourself standing here, you can drop, slide, and you can kick yourself out to Prius here, and then from there you can go wherever you need to go depending on the situation. You can line up a drop slide afterwards and connect yourself farther with this ramp. So ton of creativity here. That's just the first clip. The next map I tackled was Collie, so let's take a look at that next. So from that clip, you can start to see how this post-patch super slide technique can be very useful and very versatile, right? The biggest thing to note about how I used it at the start here, and this is basically like a half pipe, by the way, it's really cool, is just I didn't jump to set it up. So you can get really creative with how you set up the technique and fall into it. So I started here and then sprinted, fell, thrust, resprint, and then crouch when I hit the floor to slide and jump, right? And I know it sounds silly when I'm saying all these inputs, but once you get the hang of it, it's not a ton. You just got to put the time in, you got to practice it, but you can do it back and forth and launch yourself from one end to the other. This is great for starting strats. If you know that, like, you want to make a rock side starting strat, what happens is you get here so fast that players go up the rock street. You can turn around and like nade them and shoot them for free, or you can, depending on what's going on in the map, you can maybe skip it and go for a flagpole. And this technique is amazing for stealth flagpoles, which we'll cover in a second as well. But this is just, the creativity here is great because I don't have to worry about jumping to set it up. I can just fall, thrust. Make sure you time that thrust properly. If I thrust too early, I just sail through the air. So you gotta let yourself fall a little bit, and then thrust, resprint, slide, right, and jump. You can also, and this is way harder to set it up, you can also line it up from here as well. If you're really good at this technique and you want to challenge yourself, which I never really go for this because the timing is so tight, but it is possible to fall, thrust, resprint, and then slide and launch yourself out from that section as well where you have more cover. So like I said, with flag running on Collie, this technique is so damn useful. What you want to do is get to this point with the flag and then toss it out forward so it lands about there, right in front of the ramp. And then you want to do the technique and hold the pickup button at the same time, which is, once again, if you don't claw, if you don't use paddles, this might be tough, but it's doable. It's going to take that time, that practice, of course. But you hold that pickup button and you'll grab the flag as you super slide across. And you get so much speed. And the beauty of this run is it clears trench so quickly. Trench is such a dangerous place to run the flag through. This is normally where the flag runs die, where somebody throws a nade, they catch you. So if you're able to pull this off, you skip the trench, and next thing you know, you're in the opposite bend, and you're kind of like, you're not in the clear, but you're in a much safer position to continue to run that flag. You got to make sure you angle it properly as well. Notice how I bumped my face. So you want to ideally be going through this kind of section of the trench. But that's essentially what you want. Now, of course, you have to get it to this part of the elbow first to line it up properly. So what I recommend you do is, and it really depends on the situation, you might not have the luxury to do this, but if you can stealth pull the flag, I recommend you stealth pull it, jump thrust like this, and then walk it out to the bend because they might not see you right away, and then toss it out. Now they're aware of it, but by the time you kind of make them aware of the fact that you tossed it out bend, you can very quickly drop and do the technique. You can kind of like finesse your way around this, like kind of wait for your opportunity as well, let's say. So let's say I'm like up on this bend, I toss it, somebody's shooting at me, and if they shoot me, I can't sprint. So I like back down temporarily, shoot them a couple times maybe, then I come back up and I do it again. Or if you're crazy, if you're a monster, you can try to set up this way and fall and grab it that way, good luck. The timing is so tight. But just in general, if you can pull this off, very useful for flag runs. So after that, the next part was super simple. I just kind of came up. I did a thrust slide over this this platform here. Biggest thing to pay attention to is just the ground when you're thrust sliding, right? Sometimes the ground's kind of uneven. Your feet leave the floor, just like mine just did. So you want to make sure you have a nice flat surface when you thrust slide and try to line that up. And then I connected this drop thrust. And this, I think, is super useful to, or drop slide, sorry. I think is super useful to consider in multiplayer if you can get the hang of doing this, because it's just a nice way to get to this snipe ramp without burning a thrust and save time at the same time. I also popped a stabilize just to like make sure I got there without clambering, but what I'm doing is I'm sprinting forward and falling, and I'm trying to hit this corner of the ramp, like somewhere down here, and then slide the instant that I hit it. Slide jump the instant that I hit it. Like that, and then it kicks me out, and then I crouch jump, and I can sail right over, save my thrust, and I'm right here. It's just a nice, convenient connection. So highly recommend you work on that drop slide. It's just a nice, simple way to save your thrust, move fast. From there, I did this crazy super slide that sent me across the entire map. This is sick, honestly. It's so satisfying to do when you hit it perfectly. Whether or not you can actually find a good moment to use it, hard to say, right? Because, like, why would you want to give up snipe control to launch yourself into the elbow? You would have to, let's say you have a lot of numbers, you got a lot of teammates stacked on snipe, so you want to quickly change lanes and flank elbow. Maybe it can work, like if you spawn snipe side, everybody's snipe, so you say, all right, I'm gonna take elbow real quick, and then bam, bam. But that means that the enemy might also be in elbow, so if they catch you, you're in a low position, you're gonna want to play stealthy once you get here. So you really got to consider the risk versus reward, and that's the beauty of every advantageous technique in Halo 5, is everything that you do has a risk associated, and that's why it's satisfying, because you have to be creative. You have to kind of pick your timing and then hit the inputs correctly as well. But as far as how this works, I sprint and then I hold crouch to crouch jump over this, even though I'm sprinting. So what I make sure to do is hold crouch and then sprint again when I make contact with the couch arm there, or whatever you want to call that, so that I don't lose my sprint momentum when I land on it. So I sprint and then hold crouch, because if I hold crouch and don't resprint, then I just stop sprinting. So you want to sprint, jump, hold crouch, and then resprint, drop, and then thrust, resprint, land, crouch to slide, right? A lot of inputs, but you guys just practice, you'll get it down. Just like that. And because I'm coming in with so much speed, you don't really have to aim for like a specific point on here, but just you want to hit the sloped part of grass, obviously, and you get that timing, you'll make it work. You can get creative with it in different ways. Like technically I could try to do this like that. I try to avoid situations where I spend a long period of time with like in sprint animation, right? Because if I come off from here, I spend like a long time sailing through the air trying to line up the slide, right? So I found it more useful to go from that couch position, because it's quicker, right? It's like bam, bam, like thrust, slide, you know, if you hit it right. It's nice and quick, nice and clean. Check this out as well. I'm not really sure if you'd consider it optimal ever to go for this, but that's pretty satisfying, right? Like you can connect it. If you really hit that clean and a flag's just like sitting out bottom mid, you could probably connect it into a flag run. I was just trying to think of like, when would this happen in a game, right? And the only scenario I could think of is like, let's say you're pushing up through snipe, your teammate grabs flag and he takes it out through window, and then he dies in trench, and you're still on the enemy side of the map here. You could technically go for this, but what you might want to do first is tell your teammate, like you want to have a teammate coming up elbow to top rocks to just take some of that aggro and put shots in and maybe block that rock side spawn, so that you have kind of the freedom to go through and then grab the flag and make this crazy run, right? But if you can pull that off, honestly, clip it, tag me on Twitter or something, because that would be a sick play. After all this, I just came back up here. I jumped and clambered this. Nothing fancy. I could have done maybe like a crouch jump or a spring jump or something to get up there clean, but I didn't. I was just worried about hitting this next drop slide, which this one, more for vanity once again, like more of a style slide. I wouldn't really recommend that you do this, because you're very vulnerable when you're doing this. This drop slide though, right, you can apply this anywhere, right? Like I can walk off here, land and drop slide on this, and depending on like how well I connect this, I can get a pretty sweet launch, just falling and drop sliding like that, right? So you really got to think about, where can I creatively use this drop slide technique? And there's also ramp sliding, which I'll talk about in a second. There's so many ways to use the slide to just be effective. From there, I just did a crouch jump. I grabbed the outside of the archway, right? You can't really clamber the inside of this archway, but you jump, turn, grab the outside, and then thrust, landed on top mid. I meant to do one more drop slide, but I messed it up. What I was trying to do was sprint, land on the side of silver, and then kick myself out like that, and then jump thrust. And if I do it right, I do it really quick. I grab that, and then jump thrust, land on here without a clamber. Or, depending on the angle, I would like kick myself, maybe hit bend. Either way, you can see how creative you can get with this technique and how sick it can be. All right, last clip is on the rig. This was the most challenging one to pull off and has the most room for improvement, but still very sick. Let's take a look. The rig is honestly such a sick map for jumps in general, but also just for practicing all this like new meta type stuff. It's going to be very hard to implement this stuff in game, but I'm curious to see if people start using this and can actually hit clips while doing it. Because honestly, I like to challenge some of you guys to try these jumps and to hit clips. It's hard enough to do these jumps. To then hit like a snipe as you fly through the air, that's a whole nother story. But basically, what I did, I started by doing a super jump, and at this point, super jumps are easy. Like this is the child's play, right? Super jump, I landed and then spring jumped to get up here, so I skipped the clamber, jump, land over here. Now this is another super slide, and I got creative with it to try to line it up, because think about it, how am I going to line this up? I can try to jump and spend like hours in the air while somebody shoots me. I could try to fall off of this thing, which is like, it's hard to connect that as well. But then I realized this is a pretty good lineup. What you want to do is you want to sprint and keep yourself on the left side of this so you fall off with a little bit of space. And then you have to thrust, resprint, slide, and jump. Now, depending on the timing and the position that I hit that ramp, I can really kick myself like really far and really fast over to car. Now, that was slow too, right? You got to get that right timing. And if you do it, I mean, you can make a sick play with it, maybe. There's a couple situations that I could consider this making sense. Like, if you want to make a rotation to basement in strongholds, that's a fast way to get to carbine. That might help you, right? In general, this area of the map, there's, like, you can do that super slide, but you can also kick yourself to BR base as well. So, like, depending on whether or not you want to go basement or BR, like, I can do this. Bam. And then spring jump. If I hit a spring jump, I clear this section and I go all the way over into BR base. Let's say I have like a rail gun. I could, rail somebody in BR as I fly by. Like that would be a sick clip. Same process, right? Just different. I just had to get creative with the lineup. I'm doing a drop, thrust, and then resprint slide. What I do is I line it up. I sprint off like this and then drop and thrust. Thrust, resprint, slide, jump, right? Spring jump, miss the spring jump. You get it, though. If you're a master, you can double spring jumps. You can land on that first one in crouch and then spring jump again, and now you're up on E2. And this is just like a, kind of a sneak peek at, like, how much depth there is to just, like, these types of jumps and movements on rig specifically. Like, even off of top tower, or it's easier to do off of there, but off of top tower, this wouldn't make sense to do normally. But you can connect it this way. If you hit the timing, you get it. If you hit the timing correctly, you can connect it. You can throw yourself over to nest, or you can do it like this. You turn, right? That one's easier to do, and it's sick as well. So many ways you can do this. That was the start of the clip. Is I threw myself to car to start. Next, I spring jumped and clambered up here, and then I lined up a sweet drop slide over to the box with enough momentum to spring jump stabilize up to this catwalk without even burning my thrust, which is honestly so sick for a starting strat. If you want to get to camo quick and save your thrust for the camo, you can land, and then you got to hit the spring jump and stabilize, and then you can save that thrust, burn it, so you pick up the camo at the same time. It's a great starting strat. So definitely keep this in mind as a starting strat, but even just when you spawn, is you sprint up here a little bit and then fall off like that, and then land, slide the moment you hit the ramp, spring jump, stabilize. Hit that with good timing. You'll do it nice and clean. Even the drop slide, you want to kind of, you don't want to hit this frame perfectly. Like if I come into this too fast, that was actually pretty good. If I come into it too quick though, I'll miss the box altogether. So you want to hit like a, like that kind of. See how I like went over the box and it's hard to hit a spring jump? So all of this comes with, you have to have really good movement, really good timing. You got to grind it, honestly. Once I hit this catwalk, I like shimmied back a bit and then jumped, landed on the box, spring jump, stabilized, went the other way. So this whole area, you can connect with spring jumps and stabilizes. It's honestly wild. Like not even just here, but like this one right here, right? Like I can land on here, spring jump up this way, or I can spring thrust the other, and or die, right? Like you have to have good movement. Honestly, this is just the difficulty that comes with this game, but also just how damn satisfying it is. Like everything connects, right? I didn't hit the spring jump, so I will now, you know, suffer the consequences. But you can spring thrust to that, and then go to the box, spring jump this way. I'll do the easy way, the scoreboard. Spring jump that way to get there, spring thrust to get here. Like just ridiculous, all the stuff you can connect. And then slide jumped out. Gotta make sure not to hit the wall. Standard jump, and I did a drop slide, which I wish I did this in the clip. I didn't think to do it until after. Grab the shoddy and then clamber up. That would have been sick. But so you can grab the shoddy as you slide across. And then what I wanted to do at the very end, but I messed it up, so I cut it out, was a drop kind of super slide technique off of the top of yellow, which this is super impractical. I can never really think of a situation where you would want to do this because just keep top tower control. Don't give up that high ground to throw yourself at VR, but it's sick. If you can hit it properly, you can actually line up a sick one and send yourself over to E1. From there, I probably would have just like ground pounded off the edge or something. But just, once again, just how creative you can get with this technique. I'm sprinting, I fall for a quick second, and then I re-sprint and time the slide the instant I hit the bottom of that ramp right there, and it sends me out. Before we get off the rig, there was a sequence I had wanted to do here that I spent hours trying to do, and I just couldn't hit it. So I'd like to challenge somebody, if you're crazy enough, if you think you can actually pull this off, to try to do this sequence in this way. What you want to do is start here on tower, and then reload to show off the weapon skin, because it's sick, right? So hit a reload, and then fall, thrust, re-sprint, super slide out to here, clamber this, hit a crouch jump, and then land on the box, spring jump up here so you don't have to clamber it. Go here, do a super slide, like that, but you have to hit the proper one, because I would give up on the clip and restart at this point, right? You want the real launch out to here, and then fall, drop slide, land on the yellow box, but perfectly land on this box so that the instant you hit it, you can spring jump, thrust to there. So don't even bother to go here, which I think that would look so sick if you do this all together. So you like drop, land, slide, land in the box, spring, thrust, stabilize, catch the catwalk, which I didn't, get up there, and then climb to this, jump, right? Drop slide on this, grab the shoddy, jump up here, and then finish it off with this thing, or finish it off with, this would also be kind of cool, is fall clamber, and then spring thrust to top tower, like that. If you can pull that full sequence off to get back to where you started, you're a freaking god. I spent hours doing this. It's so difficult. So go for it if anybody's up for the challenge. But yeah, that whole sequence in one clean run, no mistakes. All right, that's it for today's video, and a very detailed look at what I would say are two new meta techniques, the drop slide and the super slide. If enough people master this stuff, I think it will fundamentally change the way that players navigate maps in Halo 5. And I mean, with Halo Infinite on the horizon somewhere, we got no idea when this game is coming out, maybe now is a good time to grind this stuff out, to master it, and probably we won't see this same stuff in Halo Infinite, but you never know how your understanding of these mechanics can translate over the next game, which from what we know of Infinite, a lot of the mechanics are very similar. So this knowledge could always help you out. If you're still grinding Halo 5, hopefully this is helping you improve your game. I actually had 2 more clips that I broke down that made this original video over 40 minutes long. So I've got plenty more content covering these slides on different maps that I might upload as well. So stay tuned there, but there's just so much depth, so much creativity that can be used with these techniques that I urge you to go give it a shot. Go try it out on different maps, try it out even on the maps that I showed, and if you come up with something awesome and you hit a sick clip, tag me on Twitter, let me know. Let's share that stuff out there. Anyway, that's it for me. Good luck grinding out there. If you guys want more content from me, hit subscribe above or check out related videos on my right-hand side. Plenty more stuff you can watch. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.